Somewhere in the mountains of ancient Japan, a village stopped counting how many people had vanished. Travelers walked into the forest and never came back. Farmers spoke of shapes moving between the trees at night. Children were warned never to cross the bridge after sunset. The stories always began the same way: a noise in the dark, a shadow too tall to be human, a scream that ended too quickly. By morning, no body, no explanation, only fear. Villagers gave that fear a name. They called it Oni, a demon. Some had horns, some had glowing eyes. Some wore the face of someone the villagers once knew. People built shrines to keep them away. They left offerings at crossroads. They prayed before entering the forest, because once you stepped past the tree line, you were no longer protected by the rules of the village. You were in their world. And the strangest part is this: these weren't campfire stories told for fun. People believed these creatures were real, so when something threatens a village, someone has to fight back. That's where they came in. Samurai, mountain monks, wandering swordsmen who claimed they could see what ordinary people couldn't. Some carried blessed blades, said to be forged specifically to cut through a demon's flesh. Others carried nothing but prayer beads and the belief that faith itself was a weapon. Historical texts describe men who hunted Oni in the mountains the way a soldier hunts an enemy in war, tracking, waiting, striking before dawn. One of the most famous stories tells of a warrior who battled a demon terrorizing a mountain pass, finally severing its arm in the dark. The arm, the legend says, was kept locked away for years because even in pieces, people feared it might still be dangerous. These weren't myths whispered by children. They were recorded in official records, temple scrolls, samurai diaries. This is the story everyone knows: monster hunters, cursed blades, demons in the mountains. But there was a problem. When historians began studying these accounts more closely, something didn't make sense. Demon sightings weren't random. They followed a pattern. They clustered near deep forests, isolated mountain roads, and unlit travel routes, the exact places where people most often went missing for entirely different reasons. They spiked dramatically during years of famine, during plague outbreaks, during war, when soldiers and bandits moved through the countryside in numbers no village could defend against. In some regions, demon attacks rose sharply right after a volcanic eruption or a landslide buried a village in the dark of night. Why would supernatural creatures care about the harvest calendar? Why would monsters only appear where roads were treacherous and law enforcement didn't reach? The deeper we look, the stranger the story becomes. Historians began cross-referencing demon legends with criminal records from the same regions and the same years. And that's where the mystery begins. In feudal Japan, the mountains were lawless. Bandits hid in the forests where soldiers and tax collectors couldn't easily follow. They wore frightening masks to terrify travelers into surrendering without a fight. Some accounts describe robbers dressed in horned headgear specifically to be mistaken for Oni. A bandit wearing a demon mask wasn't pretending to be a monster. He needed people to believe he was one, because a terrified victim doesn't fight back. Wild animals explain another layer. Bears and wolves once roamed Japan's forests in far greater numbers, capable of killing a person in seconds and dragging the body away, leaving exactly the kind of disappearance that fueled demon stories for generations. Disease explains another. Villagers struck by sudden fevers, deformities, or unexplainable deaths were sometimes believed to be cursed or possessed, their suffering blamed on a demon rather than an illness no one understood, and isolation explains the rest. A traveler lost on an unfamiliar mountain road, exhausted, starving, terrified of the dark, was primed to see a demon in every shifting shadow. Fear gave those dangers a face. That face became a demon. The samurai who hunted demons in the mountains may very well have been hunting something real: bandits, predators, threats to the village. But the language people used to describe that danger was shaped entirely by what they couldn't explain.
So who were the demon slayers really fighting? Some were fighting bandits. Some were fighting wild animals. Some were fighting disease, starvation, and disaster, forces no sword could ever defeat. But in every case, they were also fighting something else, something far older than any monster. They were fighting the unknown. Because when a society has no explanation for sudden death, disappearance, or disaster, it doesn't simply accept the silence. It builds a story. It gives the danger a shape, a face, a name, because a named fear is easier to fight than an invisible one. Over centuries, these stories evolved. Village legends became written folklore. Folklore became woodblock art. Art became theater, then literature, then animation. And in the modern era, that same fear resurfaced in a new form. A story about a young swordsman hunting demons in a world that looks remarkably like the one his ancestors feared. The franchise carries the name forward, but the bones of the story are centuries old. The demon never really left. It just changed shape, the way it always has. The demon slayers were real. The demons may not have been, but the fear that created them never disappeared. It simply found new names: disease, disaster, the dark corners of what we still don't understand. And perhaps that was the monster they were fighting all along.